If you happen to be a game developer, or at least someone that takes a passing interest in game development, you'll know that creating a successful game is a pretty hard thing to do. You need to establish a killer gameplay loop, create a world worth exploring, craft a series of deep and nuanced characters, and most importantly, you have to make sure all the code works. In short, it's a pretty stressful time. Most developers tend to settle for getting their base game out the door before they consider adding additional flourishes, but in some cases, developers will bake additional games right into the base game world, offering worthwhile little distractions from your grand quest. AAA examples would be things like Gwent from The Witcher, Orlog from Assassin's Creed Valhalla, or Machine Strike from Horizon Forbidden West. However, we aren't chatting about AAA games here, that's not in our remit here at IGC. Instead, we'll be looking at the best in-game games presented by plucky indies, allowing players to lose themselves in trivial pursuits instead of engaging in the main quest content. I don't know about you guys, but I'm pretty easily distracted, and these games have consumed more of my time than I care to admit. So without further delay, here is Indie Game Culture's list of the best games within indie games ever. In at number 1 we have Wheels from Sea of Stars. We begin with a recent classic JRPG inspired epic called Sea of Stars, a game that I awarded my first ever 10 out of 10 review score, and considering how much of a curmudgeon I am generally, that's as big an endorsement as I can give this title. It has incredible turn-based combat, iconic characters aplenty, staggering, beautiful visuals, and an awesome story. However, I find myself peeling away from the action regularly to play a few rounds of Wheels, this world's pub game of choice. Wheels is a slot machine based strategy game where players will need to build XP on each of their figures, build bulwark defenses, and charge attacks to take down their opponent. It sounds a little complicated, but it's actually very easy to pick up, and when you do, you might not be able to pull yourself away from the Wheels table. You have been warned. In at number 2 we have Journey of the Prairie King from Stardew Valley. The game that will always haunt me, as I could never complete Vector's challenge and beat this minigame without dying. Journey of the Prairie King is a game that can be accessed via an arcade machine at the Stardrop Saloon in Stardew Valley, and offers players the chance to play a western-themed bullet hell game which is addictive but punishing as all hell. You'll shoot from the hip and take down zombies and monsters across a handful of levels, with a boss encounter splitting the 3 main stages, and you'll need to acquire quick pickup items and upgrades if you want to stand a chance of getting to the end. Dynamo Kart is the other minigame on offer at the Stardrop Saloon, but it has nothing on this masterful arcade shooter. So when you're next in town enjoying the Pelican Town nightlife, be sure to check this one out. In at number 3 we have Beachstickball from A Short Hike. If you're a fan of the Indie Game Culture podcast, and if you're not, why aren't you? You'll know that all 3 of us really got a kick out of Beachstickball from A Short Hike, with Malika racking up a 96 volley streak, which is pretty impressive. For context, Beachstickball is a mini-game within A Short Hike that has players use a stick to hit a beach ball over a volleyball net. Between you and me, it's essentially a game of volleyball, but the added whimsy is welcome for sure. All you need to do is hit the ball every time your partner knocks it back over to you, and if you manage to get a 30 streak, you'll get a snazzy hat for your efforts, which is all the motivation you need to become a Beachstickball champ. In at number 4 we have Demontower from A Night in the Woods. A Night in the Woods is a pretty special game about exploration, meeting colourful characters in a small town, and finding a place where you truly belong. However, if you feel like it, you can sack that all off and play a surprisingly engaging 2D roguelike dungeon crawler called Demontower, which can be accessed via May's laptop in-game. This roguelike plays similarly to your typical top-down Zelda adventures, asking you to swipe at monsters to kill them, loot chests to gather keys, supplies and health as you go, and you'll need to take down a series of bosses into the bargain. Demontower has 10 full levels to explore, each with its own boss, and multiple endings to boot. Honestly, this minigame within Night in the Woods has no right to be so detailed and fun, yet it stands out as one of the finest games within indie games ever. So kudos to Infinite Fall for finding the time to include this little gem. In at number 5 we have Latte art mode from Coffee Talk. If you've played the striking visual novel Coffee Talk, then you'll know that the game succeeds on 2 fronts. Its cast of intriguing characters living in a reimagined Seattle setting, and the array of drinks that you can craft as the story develops. However, despite all this interesting content happening around me, I found myself playing around with the Latte art mode for hours, aiming to create the most visually impressive leaf on top of a patron's coffee before handing it over. It's a wonderful distraction that allows you to rotate the cup and steadily add milk to the drink, which, if done skillfully, will allow you to create masterpieces. Plus, it's actually pretty true to the real life practice if you've ever tried to draw a leaf on your latte before. It's not so much of a game as it is a gimmick, but it's a gripping one, let me tell you. In at number 6 we have the Papyrus minigame from Undertale. Do you remember Flappy Bird? You know, the mobile game that was promptly ripped off app stores after the developer received ample death threats for their game being too hard? What a weird time that was. Well, Undertale has its own little version of this title for you to get lost in, and it's called Papyrus's minigame. This is one of 2 minigames found in the vanilla Undertale experience alongside Undyne's minigame, and has you play as a blue soul and dodge oncoming bones as you would do in the game's typical bullet hell format. Only in this game, you'll be able to record a score for every bone you dodge, and you can play against other players if you can find someone via matchmaking, which sadly isn't all that likely. It's about as minimalist as a minigame gets, and yet I could spend hours wasting my time on this, and I would wager you could too. In at number 7 we have Soul Melodies from Tchia. Tchia was a game that disappointed me when it arrived on the scene this year, as it failed to deliver the open world bliss that I was expecting. However, there were some bright spots in this lukewarm affair, such as the incredible soul jumping mechanic, the stunning soundtrack of authentic Caledonian music, and of course, the soul melodies. This game is packed full of relatively enjoyable minigames like totem carving, diving, shooting and more, but the best in class is definitely the ukulele based rhythm game sections. Players will need to play in time with the awesome tunes, and while a lot of the rhythm games out there are patronizingly easy, Tchia doesn't pull any punches, meaning you'll need to be an adept ukulele player to succeed. Then if you just want to chill out and hone your craft, you can also play the ukulele in a casual mode and put together real world tunes if that's your thing. All in all, Tchia may be a bit of a letdown, but the ukulele sections are something that you could lose yourself in for hours. In at number 8 we have Shark Teeth from Dave the Diver. Are you aware of the kids board game Crocodile Dentist? Well, it's essentially a game that asks you to take turns pulling teeth out of a crocodile's mouth, with one random tooth causing the mouth to snap shut, signaling that the other player has won. It's just a more modern buckaroo, but you get the picture. I bring this up because the indie smash hit Dave the Diver takes this idea and makes it into a cute little strategy game where you'll need to avoid finding the cavity in a shark's mouth. You and Unak will take turns, and you'll be able to remove 1 to 3 teeth at a time, aiming to avoid the trick tooth as you go. It's pretty simple and it's pretty fun all the same, and it's a nice easy way to earn up to 100 bay per game, so give it a try next time you're out on a dive. In at number 9 we have the model ship from The Outer Wilds. Again, this isn't so much a game as it is a fun gimmick that will take up more of your time than you expect, but when you begin your adventure within Outer Wilds, on the starting planet Timber Hearth, you'll come across a model ship that will essentially tutorialize how to fly your real ship. It's a cute way to handle the tutorial, and for many, that might be the last time you ever engage with this feature, but what if I told you that there's an achievement in-game for landing this little model ship on Timber Hearth's moon? This discovery led to me personally spending way too much time piloting this little ship from Timber Hearth, essentially flying blind to try and touch this little model down on Timber Hearth's nearby orbiting moon. If you've played the game before and pretty much have space travel down to a T, this isn't the hardest task in the world, but even still, this is a test of skill and resilience, believe me. So if you find yourself on Timber Hearth again, give this a try. In at number 10 we have Classic Celeste from Celeste. Here's one that popped up in our recent Best Games from Game Jams video, which fits in quite nicely here too. If you've played through Celeste's main campaign, you'll be happy to know that the game has a ton of additional content for you to play around with, including B-sides, strawberries to collect, and more. However, within the 3rd chapter of the main campaign, you'll potentially discover something else that may eat up a chunk of your playtime too. You'll be able to find an old Pico 8 console in chapter 3, provided you can find the secret path in the washroom of the hotel. Simply interact with this and you'll boot up Classic Celeste, a game jam build of Celeste from back in the day, which you'll then be able to play anytime you want via the main menu screen. Sure, it may be just a little Easter egg, but Celeste Classic has 30 full levels to explore, and it's a challenge within itself. So if you thought that you'd milk Celeste dry, but don't know about this little detail, it may be time to hop back in. In at number 11 we have Whack-a-Cody from It Takes Two. I'm always a little hesitant to call It Takes Two an indie game, but I've seen enough people ignore EA's involvement to turn a blind eye here. It Takes Two has a number of really interesting and wacky co-op minigames to enjoy, which see Cody and May go head to head. Some highlights include laser tennis, spacewalk, snow warfare and bird star. However, our pick of the bunch is Whack-a-Cody. This is a reimagining of Whack-a-Mole that sees one player control May, who is the whacker in this situation, and the other player controls Cody, the mole. Points are awarded to May for successfully whacking the other player, whereas Cody earns points for each second they spend out in the open without getting bonked. It's simple, unadulterated fun at its finest, and also showcases just how wonderful It Takes Two's multiplayer design truly is. If you somehow haven't played this one, find a pal willing to brave the adventure and get going. And then lastly at number 12 we have Lightning in a Bottle from Spiritfarer. Lastly, we have one that I perhaps found more compelling than other players. I could be out on my own here, but I loved the events within Spiritfarer, and a Tools Lightning in a Bottle minigame was my pick of the bunch, although it's kind of similar to Giovanni and Buck's events if I'm being fair. The event allows you to collect a resource called Lightning in a Bottle by braving thunderstorms and standing in the right sections of the boat to catch the lightning bolt as it happens. It's a real test of platforming skill and knowledge of your own boat layout, as you'll need to move fast and plan routes carefully to ensure you get the most resources per event. There's no fail state here, there's no high score, and there's no limits on how many times you can do this, but it is fun to make note of how many you get each time and try and one-up yourself before the next storm rolls in. If you haven't tried this one, or played Spiritfarer for that matter, you need to do that soon. There you have it folks, 12 amazing mini games in some of your favourite indie games. These will give you hours of fun, and it's a great way to distract yourself from saving the world, climbing a mountain, or whatever else you find yourself doing. I hope this list reminded you of some of the great distractions in your favourite games, and as always, thank you for watching Indie Game Culture. I've been Cal, and I'll see you next time.